Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Guzman. I'm one of the program managers for the NSF I-Core Northeast Hub and manager of new ventures in the Rutgers Tech Transfer Office for Research, helping support our I-Core teams go through I-Core and successfully become successful startup companies. Welcome today for the Entrepreneurship Essentials meeting today. We have a really great guest speaker, Adam Dakin from Keraton Incorporated. He's going to be talking about developing a go-to-market strategy. But before that, I want to just give some folks, while they're logging in, a little bit of background about our NSF I-Core Northeast Hub and how to get involved get started on your innovation and entrepreneurship journey. So the NSF I-Core Northeast Hub is we were awarded this in 2022. It's part of the National Innovation Network. It's really a collection of universities coming together, funded by the National Science Foundation, with 11 university partners serving researchers and entrepreneurs and innovators in the Northeast region. We deliver regional I-Core training programs, educational entrepreneurship programs. We prepare trainees to go to the National I-Core program. We also do research on entrepreneurship and deep tech venture creation. But back in 2017, the federal government actually legislated this to be the standard for commercializing science in America with the American Innovation and Competitiveness Act. But NSF created the I-Core program back in 2011 for these 4 key objectives in the top right here: training an entrepreneurial workforce, translating technologies out of the lab and into the market, enabling economic impact in the region, and also nurturing an innovation ecosystem so that more people know what to do and how to do it in terms of bringing innovations forward. So again, the I stands for Innovation Core. Will help you to figure out the methods and the skill set that you need to bring your innovation from lab to market. Really helps you explore the market potential for innovation, so that way you can have societal benefit from the research discoveries you come up in your research lab, or maybe on your own, figuring out who wants it, who cares about it, and who would actually benefit from its use if brought to the market. Teams who go through the regional I-Core program get up to a $3,000 grant to use for doing customer discovery activities. And we also have access to really top quality mentors from all across the country, helping support you in your effort for bringing this innovation forward. So we want you to know that you're not on your own. We're here to help. And also we can accelerate you to the National I-Core program, which is a $50,000 grant from the NSF, or get an SBIR or SETR grant for up to $275,000. Again, these are all great ways for you to support you in your innovation journey. So this is the entrepreneurial pathway that we laid out. If you have your innovation, the first step is to do a regional I-Core. We actually have another step before that. It's called Novus. It's more like an intro to I-Core. But then you can go to National I-Core and figure out whether or not you want to continue moving forward, or maybe you've realize you have to pivot or start from the beginning. If it's a no-go, then you go back to the drawing board. But the idea is not creating something that nobody wants, but really moving forward in a way that aligns with what the market is looking for. If you have your startup company, then you can move forward to SBIR or SETR and then get further angel investment and venture capital. So again, this is the journey that we want to help you all along the way. So I mentioned some of our I-Core programs. Novus is a half-day program that's usually held on campus in person. If you want to get kind of like a taste of what I-Core is, to bring your innovation idea there. It could be a team of, it could be for individuals or for teams. The Propel Us, though, is the flagship I-Core program, regional I-Core program. That's a 4-week program where you do get the $3,000. And once you complete Propel Us, the regional I-Core program, then you could advance to the national I-Core program. So what makes a typical team is a technical lead who's usually the university faculty member who's typically the inventor of the technology, deep technology experience and understanding what the technology can and can't do. There's an entrepreneurial lead who is the grad student or postdoc, oftentimes who's committed to understanding the market potential of the innovation. And they actually are the star of the team. They are leading the I-Core team forward in doing customer discovery. And then there's an industry mentor, somebody with experience in bringing technologies to market, and they really give guidance to the team in terms of like what the industry trends are, and they have warm connections that they can introduce the team to. Another opportunity we have for individuals from underrepresented groups is the ICOR Fellowship, where we match innovation-minded students who want to participate on an ICOR team. They are matched based on their experience and interest to teams who are accepted through the ICOR program. And it's a really great way to kind of get started, and you get to be considered a co-entrepreneurial lead, and you get $1,000 stipend for contributing in a meaningful way and completing the ICOR fellowship requirements. So I just want to mention, last slide is the upcoming opportunities for the regional ICOR programs coming up. We have a Rutgers ICOR cohort on campus. It's a hybrid, so the kickoff and finale are going to be in person. The other two are virtual. We have a Princeton Propel Us ICOR program starting May 3rd. I forgot the dates. The dates are in I think late May, early June. The NJIT cohort is going to be in June. The deadline is May 17th. There's a virtual Propel Us cohort, hub-wide. The deadline is June 17th. That's going to be from July to August. And there's also a University of Delaware ICOR cohort where the deadline is June 30th. So again, these are all upcoming in the next couple of months. Please take advantage of it. And I think Kate could put in the chat there the events page so you can stay tuned to when the next cohorts are. But again, thank you all for joining. I do want to give the floor now to Adam, who's going to talk about the go-to-market strategy and really share a lot of expert advice to all of us. So thank you, Adam, for joining us, and I will stop sharing.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Mark. All right, let's switch over to this and share. And hang on a second. Hang on. All right, I think that's going to work. Let me go into slideshow here. And are you seeing that okay? Full screen?
Perfect. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks, Mark. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks, Mark and the ICOR team for the invitation. Delighted to be here and share some thoughts on go-to-market strategy with all of you. I tell you, my experience has been that many startups and founders don't really understand even what a go-to-market strategy is. So we're gonna level set in a minute and sort of put some definition around what that actually is. But it's definitely an area of weakness for a lot of startups. I find particularly technical and scientific founders struggle a bit to put a go-to-market strategy, but it's so critical and it's so essential to the success of the business, to your ability to get funding. Nowadays, even the most earliest stage companies are going to have to put some thought behind their go-to-market strategy, because investors have learned painfully that having a great product doesn't matter if you haven't figured out how to get it to the market, you haven't figured out how to price it, to reach customers, to communicate the value prop and the ROI, right? So it's really an area that even at the earliest stages, when you may be focused on the tech, you still got to be thinking about the go-to-market strategy and really, and it's a lot of work and effort. ICOR certainly supports that. They're funding some of your early customer discovery. That's a really essential element to building out, a go-to-market strategy. So let's dive into some of this in a little bit more detail. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but my background, as Mark mentioned, I recently started as the president and CEO of Keraton, which is a SaaS-based feeding management platform. It's used by intensive care units within enterprise healthcare systems and hospitals. I actually just started this about a month ago. For the last 7 years before that, I was a partner with a Philadelphia-based venture fund. We were focused primarily on healthcare platforms and medical devices. I've been working on venture-backed startups for 25 plus years, almost the only thing I did since I got out of college. Along the way, I co-founded 5 health tech companies, been on about a dozen boards. A couple of those companies did well. A couple of those companies were absolutely abysmal failures. And the jury's still out on the last one. I'm crossing my fingers, hoping we can get that one across the finish line. Pretty active investor, have a few patents, and my educational credentials are on there. So you can learn more about me on LinkedIn. The one tip that I would give, I tell founders, whether it's me or anybody else, when you do your LinkedIn outreach, include a personalized note. Investors get inundated with LinkedIn requests from founders. And if you just go with the boilerplate, note, it's probably going to get ignored. So you'll get a much higher conversion rate for your outreach if, hey, Adam, it was good meeting you, at the iCore event today. Maybe a sentence or two on something that you found interesting. Be a much, much higher conversion rate. So do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love working with startups. It is my passion. Building product, taking products to market, pretty much all I've done, almost all in the healthcare space over the last 25 plus years. So, the mentality of a lot of founders is, hey, I've got this awesome technology. And, if you build it, they will come, right? This reference to Field of Dreams. But I can tell you, in a market that's, noisy, complex, customers are inundated with different solutions. People are insanely busy, particularly in the healthcare world, right? It doesn't matter how good your product or your technology is. You have to find a way to get it in front of customers, make sure it resonates with customers. And it's an incredibly time-consuming, challenging process, but it is a process, and you have to dedicate yourself to going through that process. And so, I like this concept, right, from Sun Tzu, The Art of War, kind of a famous quote, right? Every battle is won or lost before it is ever fought. And to a certain extent, that's really true with go-to-market strategies. Before you take the product to market, you should have already done the work to have a pretty good sense whether that go-to-market's going to work. Now, that said, there's always experimentation. You never get it totally right the first time. Oh, we got to change our pricing model. We got to change how we describe the ROI. That's all going to evolve for the life of the company. But you need to go in ahead of time with a pretty good sense that your messaging is going to resonate, your pricing makes sense, you have an ROI that makes sense. And so hence, you go out there and you have a pretty good signal from the market as to whether or not you're on the right track. All right, so let's level set and define, because I find a lot of founders and startups don't even really understand what a go-to-market is. Often they confuse that with a sales strategy. So investors may ask, and when I was a venture capitalist at Dream for the last 7 years, hey, tell us about your go-to-market strategy. And founders would often say, oh, we're going to hire direct sales reps. Or, oh, we've got several distribution partners lined up. To be clear, those are sales tactics. That is not a go-to-market strategy, right? So key elements of a go-to-market strategy: target markets, right? A clear and a compelling value proposition, specific goals backed up by a timeline when you will achieve those goals, a repeatable sales process. And that repeatable sales process is going to take some time to develop. It's going to evolve and change as you go to the market and you process or assimilate feedback from the market. Companies almost never get that right the first time. It includes, clear, effective marketing and distribution, i.e., who are those buyers? How do we reach them? And it includes the stakeholders, right? Because rarely are we selling to a single buyer. Usually there's a constellation of stakeholders that are influencers, may even have veto power in that purchasing decision, and their wants and needs may be different than the actual economic buyer, who's writing the check, or even the users who's using the platform. But here's what's really important. It's based on data and defendable assumptions. I cannot tell you how many times we've gotten startup pitches and we say, well, how do you know that? And there's very little data to back it up. We just know every doctor's going to want one. And we used to say at my fund, you can point at data, but you can't wave your hands, right? One of my favorite startups is a company called Health Note. They automate the intake process before a patient gets to the doctor. It's founded by an MD. When we were doing early diligence on that company, the founder said, I interviewed 130 doctors to figure out what this platform needs to do and what is the value proposition. Well, that's pretty compelling, right? So customer discovery, really understanding the market, and then getting actual quantifiable data that backs up those assumptions, right? Turning assumptions into knowledge based on data, super critical, super valuable. And trust me, investors are going to pressure test those assumptions. And if you don't have data to back those assumptions up, you're going to lose credibility. And in fact, maybe, you may just completely miss out on the opportunity. Investors just might say, you know what, come back, or life's too short. You're making a bunch of assumptions about every customer is going to want one, but you don't actually have the data. You haven't built out an ROI model. You haven't talked to enough customers. You don't understand the buying process for your particular product. How long is it going to take? Who are the decision makers? All those kinds of things. So that level sets us anyway in terms of what is a go-to-market strategy and what are the key elements. So to summarize, right, a go-to-market for startup it's absolutely critical. Why? Well, another venture capitalist that I'm friends with used to say the definition of a startup is a race against insolvency. Think about that for a second. The definition of a startup is a race against insolvency. And I think he's right, because you have a limited amount of time to hit certain goals. And if you don't do that, you're going to run out of money. Almost always, those goals involve some type of early customer validation, maybe traction and revenue. And that's why it's so important to have a very clear, specific plan and tactics for gaining those initial customers and that early revenue. So again, to summarize, and that includes developing very clear targeting criteria for those early customers. What are their personas? What are their characteristics? We're going to drill down on this in a little bit more detail in a second. But we sell through a direct sales force, we sell through distributors. That's a tactic that may support your strategy, but that is not a go-to-market strategy, right? We sell to hospitals. That's not a go-to-market strategy. So let's drill down on specifics a little bit here. But again, just to elaborate, I think a lot of founders don't appreciate why go-to-market is so critical, because they're very focused on the technology itself. Okay. Again, we used to say at my venture fund, we used to use a phrase called "What's the bet?" What's the one or two things that if we're wrong about, we're gonna fail. And usually those risks, that early "what's the bet" question involves validating customer demand. It's so basic, right? Is there actually a customer out there with budget and authority who's willing to buy this product? It's really simple stuff, right? But getting those early customers, right, it hugely de-risks the platform. Or, sometimes, right, you'll hear investors say, will the dog eat the food? Right? Is there actually a market? Are there willing buyers for your platform here? And so that early go-to-market, that very early initial traction might only be just a handful of customers. That is massive de-risking for investors. Just that little inflection point that you've got found a handful of people who use it, like it, they were willing to pay for it. Oh, the product actually works, right? We deployed it and the customers are using it. Those early customers are critical, right? Because they're going to be your referenceable customers down the road, right? Everybody's going to say in the beginning, you may get some early adopters, but once you get past those early adopters, the next batch of customers say, well, who else is using it? What's their experience been like? Okay, if I talk to them, that pattern of repurchasing or continued use, churn is right. That's a losing customers. That's what we call churn when you lose a customer. That's real negative signaling for investors and just for the future of the business, right? So a signal that they're sticky, they like the platform, they're going to keep buying it, they're going to repurchase it if it's a medical device. Those are critical signals, and that they're willing to pay. So you might get all this other stuff right, but guess what? Your price is wrong. And it cost you $50 to make the product, and it turns out the market's only willing to pay 25. Guess what? You don't have a business. Everything else was great. They loved it. It performed as advertised. Great. So that early validation on your pricing model is also critical, right? Because the whole future, the whole value of the business is going to be, discounted cash flow, right? It's going to be based on your profit margins down the road. And so de-risking that early, we call it WTP or willingness to pay, also really critical and also essential, and why, building out this go-to-market strategy is so critical, right? So I skipped ahead a little bit here, but that, I already kind of mentioned definition of a startup, race against insolvency, so critical to get those early signals of traction. So let's talk about what actually a go-to-market strategy is in a little bit more detail and how we build one out, okay? So I use the fishing analogy, right? If I'm going fishing and I'm really hungry, I want to fish where the fish are. I want to go fishing where the fish are really easy to catch. Hang on. Head on me here. Okay. So we want to fish where the fish are, right? We want to fish, so a lot of early stage companies, they want those trophy customers. They're going to go after the big, if it's a health technology, right? They're going to go after the big academic medical centers. They want Stanford and Penn and Mass General. But guess what? They're hard to close. That's like if I was going fishing, deep sea fishing on my, I'm really hungry and I need to catch some fish, but I'm going to take my boat out 30 miles in deep sea to try to catch a 300-pound tuna. Well, great. If I catch the 300-pound tuna, I'm set for a long time. There's a really good chance that I won't catch a 300-pound tuna. I'll have to gas up my boat, spend a lot of time out there fishing. And if I come back empty-handed, I might starve to death. Well, it's kind of the same thing. If your go-to-market is, we're going to go after the big logos first, and you don't get them, or sales cycles in healthcare in particular are so long, you know what? I'd rather get 5 community hospitals signed up for smaller contracts than spend 2 years trying to get a couple big academic medical centers to sign up for the platform, right? So another sales model that folks use is called BANT, B-A-N-T. So who has budget, who has authority, who has need, and what's the timing, So to put it a very simple way, who will quickly say yes? Who are the early adopters of your product going to be, right? So that's kind of what we often refer to as the ideal customer profile, or the ICP, right? And this really is kind of, when you think about a go-to-market strategy, this is the core. This is the hub of the go-to-market foundation, right? Because to take the fishing analogy one step too far, maybe, I want to fish where the fish are actually jumping in the boat, right? I want to go fishing. I want to talk to customers who, when I say, here's what my solution does, they look at me and they go, thank God you're here. Not, why are you here again? Wait, convince me that I have a problem? Oh, okay, maybe I do. Oh, now convince me your solution makes sense, right? That's how much tougher, longer, challenging sale than those early adapters who are like, yeah, I know I got a problem. And man, if this works as advertised, I'm in, right? So sometimes there are different expressions for those markets, right? It's They call them a beachhead market, the low-lying fruit, the thin wedge of the pie, the tip of the spear. All these buzzwords are sort of, but they're all trying to get at the same thing, which is figure out who's going to say yes, who has budget, where you can get that critical early market validation that a product works, customers like it, and someone's willing to pay for it. Right. And so, thinking that process through means you have to understand, let's keep skipping ahead on me. You have to understand pain points. Hang on a second here. And so that's through customer discovery. That's going out and talking to a lot of potential customers and saying, tell me how you deal with the problem today. How frequent is it? How widespread is it? An analogy that I think makes sense is, are you nice to have, right? Taking vitamins is a nice to have. It's nice to have vitamins. But you know what? When I wake up Saturday morning after, maybe having one too many, and I got a little bit of a hangover, man, the aspirin feels like a need to have. But you know what? An antibiotic when I've got an infection, that's a must-have. And guess what investors want to invest in? We want to invest in must-have solutions where there is a significant consequence and a significant cost to the way it's being done today. So think of it as like life before and life after. Life before, today's solution, not so great. Like after with your solution, man, lower cost, better workflows, better clinical outcomes. Life is better as soon as we implement your solution. And ideally, you're solving, it's a must-have because this is a big and urgent pain point. And particularly when you think about selling into healthcare and healthcare systems, those systems today are under very significant financial pressure and financial duress. So if you are not solving a big and urgent problem that's on a healthcare system short list, you pretty much don't have a chance because they just don't have any walking around money, right? There's not budget for nice to haves or even need to haves. They got budget for must haves. So it's imperative that you have a solution that is a must have and that you can communicate to those potential buyers why it's a must have. What is the value prop? What is the return on investment? If I spend $1 on your solution, I better be getting at least 5 back. I have heard numerous enterprise healthcare systems CFOs say, if you can't convince me that I'm getting a 5-to-1 return, I'm not interested. Like that doesn't meet the threshold. And you'd say, well, geez, Mr. CFO, if I could show you get $3 back for every buck you spend, like that'd be an IQ test, right? Why wouldn't you do that? And the answer is that all these solutions require work, changing workflows or implementation. And by the way, if you tell the customer it's a 3-to-1 ROI, they don't believe you anyway. So they're going to discount whatever you tell them. So table stakes are kind of 5-to-1. And honestly, you should be able to have a financial model that backs up, even a 10-to-1 ROI. There's a lot of ways to get to those numbers, but you really, it's so important to have a model that backs up how you're going to generate the ROI. So let's talk a little bit about, generating this ideal customer profile, which really is the core of a go-to-market strategy, right? So as we said, targeting profile for the early customers, who has the problem, who feels the most pain, who has the budget. In healthcare, typically the 3 Ps, right? We're typically selling to payers, insurance companies, providers, which could be clinicians and or hospitals, patients themselves, or maybe it's actually we're selling directly to physicians. But important to understand who the actual decision makers are, what their personas are, specifically identifying titles or roles of those folks who are going to be involved in your purchasing process. Who are the decision makers? Who are the influencers? So when I was on the investor side, one of our portfolio companies was selling a SaaS platform that supported healthcare systems. And one of his early customers was Penn Medicine, right? Behemoth Academic Medical Center. He had 35 people in his CRM, right? His customer relationship management software. 35 people that were involved in this decision within Penn Medicine. 5 of those people had veto power. They could just raise their hand at any moment and say no, right? That's a sales process that's a little bit like dancing through raindrops. And oh, by the way, it's an 18 to 24 month sales process. And when I talked to him about that process, he said, you know, in hindsight, I really wish we had focused more on the smaller community hospitals. For example, you know, St. Luke's in Bethlehem, Allentown area. They were partners of my venture fund. They make decisions exponentially faster than a large academic medical center. So maybe your go-to-market is community hospitals, because we know we can get traction. We know it's a shorter decision process. We know there are fewer decision makers, right? Maybe it's ASCs as ambulatory surgery centers. So you know what? We do have a big value prop for enterprise healthcare systems, but we don't want to start there because we know how long and painful that process is. So you know what? Maybe we'll start with smaller clinics, or maybe we start with urgent care facilities. You know, we validate that we deliver value and that the platform works, and we build up a base of referenceable customers before we go after the 300-pound tuna, before we go after the big logos or the large academic medical centers. Because now we have reference, and by the way, it gives us a chance to iron out the kinks in the platform with smaller customers. Because I can tell you, when you deploy into a large enterprise healthcare system, they just want it to work. They have very little tolerance for helping you iron out the bugs, right? Generally speaking, they don't want to be your development partners. They're going to want to know that if they deploy this system wide, it's going to work, and they want to take very little risk. A lot of companies start focused on clinical research. So I've got a piece of software that generates really interesting data. You know what? I'll go sell that to pharmaceutical companies first. I have a patient engagement platform. You know, it's really about driving medication adherence. Huge problem, drives a lot of costs in the healthcare system. But instead of going right to the insurance companies and saying, hey, you should buy my platform, it's going to help patients take their meds and stay out of the hospital, you know what? I'll start with drug companies, because they have a big incentive interest if they're running a clinical trial to make sure patients adhere to the protocol, take the medication, right? Much easier place to start. Don't have to deal with reimbursement issues. Just, hey, this is going to make your clinical trial more successful. Why don't we start there? A lot of companies get tempted to go direct to consumer. I can tell you that's an incredibly challenging go-to-market strategy. Doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. But I tell you, investors, their skepticism will rise to another level if your initial market is a direct-to-consumer market. Why? On the one hand, it looks attractive. Oh, we can get up on Amazon and we can start generating sales tomorrow, assuming you have the necessary regulatory clearances. But it is the cost of customer acquisition in an incredibly noisy, crowded world where people are just inundated, is it generally, there was a great article in Startup Magazine a few years ago by the guy that started Stanford Biodesign. His name's Paul Yacht. And Paul referenced data that said 60% of companies that start D2C actually pivot back to B2B. Now, this is specifically in healthcare. And certainly been my experience on the investor side, that, it's just, it sounds good, but it just never quite goes as planned. That said, some companies, they have been successful, and a consumer market is always way larger than an enterprise business. So it is kind of tempting to go after those larger market opportunities. So just breaking down those decision makers to a next level, understanding who are the economic buyers versus who are the users. And right, so, in this analogy here, right, the child licking the ice cream, they're the user here, right? They're the one who's getting the enjoyment of the actual product itself. But mom is the economic buyer, right? Mom has the budget authority to make the decision. And so mom's needs are clearly different than the user or the kid's needs, right? Mom is thinking about, what does it cost? Is it healthy? You know, is this going to affect my kid's appetite before dinner time? You know, too much sugar is not a good thing. You know, I'm on vacation in Stone Harbor and an ice cream cone costs $12. So I couldn't, I mean, it's nuts. But you know, by the time you put the jimmies and the hot fudge and everything else on it, if you're, you know, if you're down the shore, you could be spending 10, $12 for some ice cream. You know, maybe mom doesn't love that. Feels kind of pricey. Not sure I'm getting my value for that. And certainly the case within healthcare systems or healthcare buyers, right? Typically there's the administration, the CFO, right? They're very focused on the ROI and the economic return, but typically they're not the ones using the product. It's the doctors, the nurses, right? The frontline caregivers that are the users of the product, and they're much more focused generally on patient care or workflows. You know, are you making my life easier? And getting better patient outcomes, right? The bean counters might think this is awesome and it's going to save us a ton of money, but I could tell you, if it adds 5 minutes to somebody's day who's a provider, they're not going to use it, right? Busy providers, I mean, certainly super stressed during the pandemic, still overworked today. Everybody knows we have a massive provider shortage in the United States. You know, these folks, like, their goal is to get their head between two fluffy pillows before 10 o'clock at night. So you could bring them something that's amazing, but if it changes their workflows and it adds time to their day, not going to use it, not getting adopted, right? So the value proposition and the messaging can be very different, right? And so, you know, are we selling to insurance companies? You know, or we're trying to get reimbursement. Well, they're all about claims costs. So you're going to have to prove to them, yeah, we're going to reduce your claims costs. You know, hospitals, you know, making money, saving money. But at the end of the day, if you want to be successful, you got to do one of three things, right? You got to make somebody money, you got to save somebody money, or you got to make somebody's life a lot easier. And if you're not doing one of those three things, it's probably going to be, you know, a pretty challenging product launch or go to market. It's going to be tough to get adoption. One of the things that I always like to do when I was on the investment side that I think sets a good framework is I would ask companies, just tell me where the first $1 million is coming from. Very specifically, it's 10 customers. Okay, tell me about those 10 customers. They are community hospitals that have at least 5 neurosurgeons who do at least, you know, 100 aneurysm. We have an aneurysm clip that do at least 100 aneurysm clip procedures a year. Great. And this is how much our device costs, and this is how many procedures each of them is going to need to do. So that's how we get to our first $1 million. Very granular at the level of who the customers are, how much of the product are they actually buying, right? The volume, the unit pricing. And so the worst thing companies can do is a top-down market analysis, right? It's, oh, well, it's a $100 million market and we only need to get 1% of it. And that should be a no-brainer because it's only 1%. Who can't get 1%? We'll be $1 million business, right? Frankly, that's almost intellectually insulting because it just doesn't make any sense. But a bottoms-up forecast where you're very granular about who the customers are, what's that ICP, what's that ideal customer profile looks like, how much are they paying, what is your process for getting to those customers, what messaging will resonate, who are the stakeholders that are going to be involved in the purchase, right? Okay, you've defended that you're going to get to it's $100,000 a year customer, and you need 10 customers to get there. Okay, that I can wrap my head around and understand. That's very different than, 20 customers at 50K. Okay, let's talk about that. So thinking through that modeling is really important. And so if you think at a very granular level, how are we going to get to our first $1 million? The questions you could start asking yourself is, who is the customer? Who is the buyer, title persona? How are we going to reach them? Our messaging, is it digital, social media, other referenceable customers, key opinion leaders, conferences and podium speakers, right? A lot of different ways to get the message out to your potential customers, but you got to think that through. You got to have a plan with a budget behind it, right? And then what will the message be to those different stakeholders? Is it an improvement in workflow? Is it an improvement in outcomes? Is it a cost savings? It's a revenue driver. Those can all be elements of the value proposition. And how are we going to price this? A lot of different ways to price things. It's free, and then we upsell, right? Like almost like a Slack model. We'll get you on the free plan, but then as soon as you really want to use expanded capabilities. So that's pretty common with software, right? Could be transaction-based. It's a medical device. That's transaction-based. We have a new hip implant. It's $5,000, cha-ching. Every time you put the implant in, it costs $5,000. SaaS, software as a service, that's a license model. Generally, customers are paying an annual fee for access to the software. What's evolving in a market now, many of you probably are somewhat familiar with value-based pricing, or as we shift away from fee-for-service to value-based care, where in that world, the providers are taking on more risk associated with the cost of care. You may be, if you really believe in your platform, you might be you know what? You don't pay a dime unless we save you money. But if we save you money, we want 30% of the savings. So we're going to save you $10 million next year. You're going to give us $3 million. It's a risky strategy, but if it works, there can be pretty significant upside in that pricing model. And finally, getting very granular. Is it an account manager, a sales rep? Who's gonna manage this process? Who is it? We're gonna have a full-time salesperson. We're gonna have inside salespeople. We're gonna work with channel partners. They're gonna generate the leads for us, but then we'll follow up and close the leads. Or you know what? We're just gonna sell through channel partners. We got a great medical device. We're gonna hand it over to Boston Scientific. They're gonna handle all the sales and marketing for us. All right. I'm going to skip past this in the interest of time. I think it's just a lot of this is really fundamental. The who pays and why, and just cannot tell you how many times, as an investor, we've sat in front of companies and we're like, stop. Who pays and why? It's such a basic fundamental question, but many startups just skip past it. So, right. Is it the provider, the doctor, the clinician, specific administrators, specific service? It's the chief of cardiology. Is it the payers, the insurance companies? And then even within the payers, your go-to-market breaks down further. Well, it's actually Center for Medicare Medicaid Services. That's it. Or, it's small regional health plans. That's where we're going to focus on initially. Or no, what? Nope, we're going after the national plans. We're going after the Humanas and the Blue Crosses. The Aetnas of the world. Or we're going to go after self-funded employers. That's another interesting go-to-market strategy because they pay for their healthcare. And geez, if you can save the self-funded employer money right to the bottom line, they should love it. Right. And although it's more the exception, kind of more in that direct-to-consumer category, but, you can sell direct to patients. Again, very challenging go-to-market strategy, but for certain products might make sense. So I'm going to skip past some of these and sort of get to the summary here. So let me go back there. So a good little exercise to put yourself is kind of like a fill in the blank here. The problem we solve is, and you describe your value props. the initial companies or customer we're going to target are, fill in the profile, because you're going to describe or quantify the impact of the problem. And then you're going to say, we're going to make them aware of the product buy. That's how you deliver your messaging. That could be a sales team, your marketing, your channel partners, etc. Our messaging will focus on, that's where you'll define your value prop and the pain point. We will charge them a software fee, a per product fee. That's where you'll think about your pricing and your revenue model. And then how will you continue to deliver, how will you deliver the product in the first place, and how will you support the product? It might be your employees, might be your channel partners, maybe you're going to contract with outsourced resources to provide that support, training, etc. But this is sort of a nice, simple way to kind of think through all of the elements of the go-to-market strategy. All right, that's all I got, and happy to address some questions.
Thank you, Adam. That was really a great discussion. We do have about 10 minutes for Q&A. I wanted to ask really quick, when teams go through ICOR, and by the way, the audience is filled with some teams who've gone through ICOR before. Some people have never heard about ICOR, but I think a lot of the messages that you talked about, a lot of the terms you talked about really are focused in the ICOR program. But if you have a lot of these assumptions and you figured out a go-to-market strategy, and maybe you have 2 different ways, how do you know when you could just go for it, right? Like nothing is like guaranteed to win, but like how much confidence do you need that this is the way to go before you actually make the jump and be like, okay, now we're launching?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you've done a pretty significant amount of customer discovery. So it's almost it's a little bit of a gestalt of, hey, I taught like my friend Josh, who started Health Note, he talked to 130 doctors. I mean, he had a pretty good sense at that point that the value prop, was truly going to resonate, and he was solving a problem they cared about. But that said, you should be doing A/B testing. You should be, well, let's see if this works in Dallas, Texas. And let's try this one in Houston. And they're going to be slightly different. And just do that A/B testing, because go-to-market always requires experimentation. And one of the things, one of the things that used to drive me sort of crazy as either as an angel investor or when I would be in these pitches and the angel investors would really press the founder hard on, you don't have a very detailed, specific go-to-market strategy. But he or she was answering the ideal customer profile, the go-to-market plan. I was like, yeah, but we believe this could work or this could work. And there's tweaks to those. So we're going to try them both. Now, hopefully you can minimize the expense and do very sort of controlled, limited launches, or you can do a lot of testing, digital testing at a very low cost to get a sense for which of those go-to-markets is going to win the day.
Yeah, I really like that, because again, a lot of people think it has to be perfect before you launch, but by testing both, you let the data tell you which is the winner, right? And what we've seen before, I don't know if you heard about the 50-50-90 rule. If something could be 50-50, 90% of the time you do it wrong. So just let the data tell you which is the right answer. Okay, great, thanks. I see Amit has a question. Would you like to come off mute to ask your question, Amit?
Sure. Thank you for the presentation, Adam. I struggle on my go-to-market strategy, mainly to create the potential clients and the way to reach out to them for the initial clients. We're a fintech company targeting a B2B companies.
So this question is, how do you create a customer pipeline for the fintech B2B?
And reach out to them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the risk of being a little redundant, right? Build that ideal customer profile. I mean, who's got the biggest pain for what you're solving for? Has it been hard to figure that out? I mean, what's been the challenge with identifying those sort of initial ideal customer profiles, Amit?
The client size are too large. Getting into the sales cycle in those organization. Think about Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. It's pretty hard to penetrate to the right decision makers in those organizations. And even if when you go in and getting to a decision maker, they not necessarily have the power to run a pilot with you. That is one of the main challenges.
Yeah, I mean, it's just doing the work, the customer discovery, and you may find out, if you're solving a major pain point, who in that organization is accountable, is being held responsible for the outcome or the consequence associated with that pain point. And it's not easy. I mean, a lot of times, like you said, it can be more than one person. And that can make it challenging. But it may be different, right? I know I'm a healthcare guy. Every hospital is a snowflake, right? So in one healthcare system, you really want to talk to the chief medical officer. That's who is responsible for your particular area solution. But then you go down the road to another hospital, and that it's totally the wrong person. Now it's totally the chief nursing officer is the person who's responsible for this. Yeah, that information can be hard to figure out, but that's the sales discovery process. And also helps, working with salespeople who already have pre-established relationships with those organizations. I mean, that helps a lot. Because those sales reps kind of already know the landscape. Typically, they know how those organizations make decisions, and they can get in front of those people because they've already have relationships with them.
I have another question, Adam. When we're talking about a go-to-market strategy, we have people, a lot of our ICOR teams are university-based teams with like students, graduate students, postdocs, and faculty who have done a lot of the research. They're like in the lab, and maybe they don't have a good, deep understanding of the market needs and things like that. How do you recommend that they kind of get this market experience or understanding what the market trends are and things like that? Because a lot of them are earlier in their career and they don't know the landscape as well. What do you recommend for them to do in terms of understanding what those needs are, from your perspective, right?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're associated with, a university, you have a great advantage because generally speaking, the stakeholders within that network are accessible and want to help you. So if you are trying to figure out, a product that will hospitals buy it, will doctors buy it, what will hospital administrators want to see to buy it? Generally, if you're a student or a faculty member and you reach out to stakeholders within that university and say, hey, I need your help, most of them are going to be pretty responsive. Like I teach a class at Penn for biomedical engineering students, who are building out business plans for different medical technologies and products. And I'm a student and I need help. Like they get in front of the surgeons. If it's a medical device, they get to the administrators. Now you got to be a little careful, right? One healthcare system is one healthcare system. And the feedback you get there is not, may not be statistically significant. You need to get to other healthcare systems. But, within a large enterprise healthcare system, if you're a student, faculty member, you should be able to leverage those, leverage that to get to decision makers within the system.
Yeah, definitely. And leveraging the contacts in and around your network, personal and professional, right? It's a really great thing. And again, these are the kind of things that we do highly recommend to do in ICOR. So great. Any final words, Adam? I'm going to wrap up with some upcoming events and programs, but I wanted to just, I didn't see as many questions in the chat. So I guess we can, you really laid it out really, really well. I love everything that you said. It really resonates. Hopefully we can, we'll get a copy of the slides to our audience and the recording. But yeah, just any final words you want to share in terms of, what people should do when they're trying to go to market?
Yeah, I mean, just this stuff is hard, right? I mean, perseverance. You know, this is not, you know, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And so, you know, the go-to-market piece, I think, you know, science technologists, early founders tend to focus on the platform, the technology, the widget, and that's super hard, no doubt. Like coming up with a new compound in the lab, getting it to the market, crazy challenging. But the go-to-market is also crazy hard and crazy challenging, and it requires a real dedicated effort and focus. So, yeah. But you're gonna have to be able to answer that. Like, people aren't gonna fund you because, oh my God, look at the amazing results we got in the lab. I mean, maybe you can get early investors to put some money in for that, but inevitably people are gonna want to be convinced that there's a, you know, a cost-effective, economically feasible path into the market.
Perfect. This is okay. Thank you, Adam, so much. Again, we'll share the link in the chat. We'll share it afterwards, after the event. So again, thank you, Adam. I just want to mention some of the upcoming programs that we mentioned earlier. We've got the upcoming Rutgers Propel Us coming up. The dates are May 23rd through June 20th. I do have the application deadline by April 21st, but there's still some space available. So if you're interested in doing the hybrid cohort where the in-person and finale are the kickoff and the finale are in person, please apply here. You can go to go.rutgers.edu/Rutgers Propel Us. I think Kate will put that in the chat. We have the Princeton Propel Us program, apply by May 3rd, and the dates are May 31st and June 14th. It will also be in person at the Princeton campus. The NGIT Propel Us cohort will be coming in June, apply by May 17th. Again, all these are great opportunities to really do customer discovery, get out of the building, meet with those potential customers to really understand what their pain points and needs are, so that way you can really craft a really strong go-to-market strategy. And for those of you who want to participate in a virtual cohort, also we are running one on in the summer in July, apply by June 17th. I forgot the exact dates, but you can find it on the events page. For those of you who are actually interested, maybe you don't have a team yet. Again, those Propel Us is for teams of 2 or more. For those of you who are individuals who want to like explore and get started with understanding what I-Corps is all about and like take the first steps on the journey just to understand where to start, we have a Novus I-Corps program happening at Rutgers Health on June 4th in Newark, New Jersey at the Medical Sciences Building. So if you are interested in that, apply or register by May 29th. It's a half-day training workshop networking event where we help you shift the mindset from the technology you're developing to the people who would benefit. Kind of like what Adam was talking about. The technology is super hard, but we also have to understand what the market is about and who the people are that would benefit. I mentioned the I-Corps Fellowship as well. So Kate Bayduk and Lori Dars are also here, who are help run and manage the I-Corps Fellowship. So if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to Kate or Lori. And stay connected. We have an Eventbrite page, so you can see up our upcoming events. We have the Hub newsletter, so you can sign up for that as well. That comes every 2 weeks. Check out our website, icornortheasthub.org, and visit our Accelerate page to learn about new opportunities and like our socials. And again, we'll share more of these opportunities. We're always coming up with new ways to engage with you, to help support you in your innovation journey wherever you are. So thanks again to Adam for joining us for today's Entrepreneurship Essentials Go-to-Market Strategy. Again, we'll be sending an email out shortly, but thank you again to Adam. And any other questions, just let us know. But really great time today. Thank you for joining, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Excellent.
Thanks, Mark. Great stuff.